to speak. I'm Dini, I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is November 15th of 2020, which was during like the lockdown of the pandemic. It was a good time to get sober. I thought this meeting started at 9:30. So full disclosure, I am doing this from the bathroom of the climbing gym. Which, like one of the things I'm still working on is organization and like time management. Like I'm a continual work in progress. But I am sponsored and I sponsor women in the program. My sponsor does not know where I'm at physically, but she knows where I'm at spiritually. I've been incredibly lucky to get to have the life that I have now. I did not imagine that this was how my life would turn out. I was just like filled with pain from like a very early age. I remember having like this crippling like existential loneliness and like depression. Like I remember waking up at the age of like 6 or 7 with this like just emptiness inside me, and I didn't know what to call it at the time, but like, this is a spiritual disease. I was having like a spiritual like lack of meaning. There was like a God-sized hole inside of me, and like, if I wasn't getting validation from the people around me, which I wasn't because I got bullied, and like I had difficulties growing up. I had I was diagnosed with a learning disability, so I felt dumb. I felt different than other people. I felt like I wasn't going to make it on my own. I felt like everybody else had this secret to life that I did not have. Um, and like that just like made me feel like I was holding on to this secret like all the time, and I didn't have the coping mechanisms for it. So like a lot of my life was spent seeking validation from other people, wanting other people to tell me that I was good. And it was only in those moments that I was told something good about myself that I was like, okay, whew, I can take a breath, I'm fine. I was just uncomfortable. And like, the second I didn't get validation from people, or I was getting a lot of negative feedback, it brought me pretty low, and I stayed low for a while. By the age of 15, I was like isolating myself, not because I wanted to, but just because I didn't have any friends. And like, I would be friends with people at school, but like outside of school, they would like exclude me from things and let me know that they had excluded me. Like I once got a phone call from a bunch of my friends at a sleepover that we had all planned to be at together, telling me they'd told me the wrong day on purpose and that they were all doing it without me. And like that hurt. I'm sure it would hurt even if I didn't have all those pre-existing issues, but I certainly had all those pre-existing issues, which like made it so much worse. By the age of 15, I was depressed. I didn't quite know I was depressed until I was like 17. I waited until like all the elements in my life like were kind of colliding. My mom had a mental breakdown. I was like failing out of school in summer school. And I just gotten a boyfriend who was from the wrong side of the tracks, which I very much enjoyed because I'm like, oh, if this guy can love me, then that means something about me, which is like a twisted kind of logic where you're like, oh, like if a sociopath can love me, then that must mean that I'm lovable, and then I can give myself permission to love myself, which is backwards thinking. But like it was a thing that was very much ingrained for me for some reason. Like a lot of my life was spent, you know, trying to be loved or getting the illusion of love. So when my mom was hospitalized for having a mental breakdown, I took that opportunity to go off the rails because I was like, this is the perfect time to do that. And no one would question why. It's just so much stuff had been building up for so long. And I was in so much pain, and I like didn't want to be alive, but I didn't quite have the willingness to kill myself. I was hoping that I would die. So I very quickly, started getting into trouble, within like a year, I got moved from AP classes in like my junior year to like alternative school in the basement with all the kids that sold drugs, which was great for my addiction, but not so great for my schoolwork. I barely graduated high school. I graduated by the skin of my teeth, which was odd because, like, you know, once I learned how to deal with my learning disability, I'd gotten pretty good at school. Um, and you know, like my teachers were confused as to what was happening with me, but like I'd just been so happy, so unhappy for so long, and it was finally finding an outlet for that. I took my first drink at 15. I'd never planned to be a drinker, didn't understand why people were alcoholics, didn't understand why people did this. And then when I took that first drink, I was like, oh, I see why people become addicted to this. Like I didn't have any of the fears of like, what are other people thinking about me? How do I need to manage myself to get other people to like me? You know, what do I need to be to like have other people value me? What do I need to be for you to like appreciate me? Um, and so essentially, uh, you know, that first drink relieved like that God-sized hole. I was no longer like wondering, what is this all about? What am I doing here? Why does no one like me? What's wrong with me? Like my mom's extended family didn't like me, or so I thought. They had issues with my mom and she would send me over to them so I would like have a relationship with them, but they had issues with her, so they would take it out on me. So I was like, people in school don't like me, my own family doesn't like me, I'm the problem. So I engaged in like self-harm behaviors. I had like a good 7-year run of like bad choice after bad choice, like getting involved in hard drugs and like hanging out with women of the evening, is the term I'll use for that. You know, like having suicide pacts with boyfriends, um, getting handcuffed, getting in trouble with the law, getting in trouble for stealing. Mind you, I was a kleptomaniac as a kid. That was like an existing thing. I didn't understand the concept of I can't have this because I don't have the money for it. But like I you know, engaged in all the worst behaviors and therefore I didn't feel very good about myself. I wanted to be a good person. I had values deep down, but those got lost. Like the more depressed I was, the more lost I became, the less connected to my values I was, and the more guilty I felt, the more shame I felt. And I didn't know how to cope with that shame because no one ever taught me how to deal with those things. There's not a class that they teach you at school. So I like drank and I used drugs, and that led to more shame. And it was this cyclical cycle of constantly never being sober. Um, but always feeling shameful. And eventually I had to become numb and separate myself from my feelings. I became quite a cruel person. You know, I would hurt other people, I would use other people. I was always trying to validate myself and make sure I got what I needed. Um, my first time in AA was like when I was 17. It was not my choice to be there. I got sent there by my mom and my dad because they were pretty worried about me. Apparently, a lot of people in my life were worried about me, but I wasn't really tuned into that or interested in that at all. I liked AA, you know, like it like planted a seed being there, but like I didn't think I was an alcoholic because you know, I was still pretty early in my run. Like I was like a couple years into my run being sent to AA. And I actually was in Michigan at the time, so there weren't a lot of young people like me. Um, there were just a lot of old people that had had like, you know, 20 years, 40 years of like, you know, alcoholism before their sobriety. So like they had had a lot of things happen to them that I hadn't had happen to me yet. And so I didn't think I was one of them. And I found it really annoying when old people would come up to me and be like, you remind me of me when I was your age. And I'm like, you don't know me. That's such a weird thing for you to say to me. I'm not one of you. Um, I didn't really understand what the program was. I thought it was just going to meetings, and I kept seeing these steps on the wall, and I'm like, I don't understand how these things are connected at all. There was a lot of the word God in it, and I wanted no part of that. I felt like I was smarter than people who were religious. I felt like if you need God to tell you how to be a good person, and like just kind of summed up religion as being like, oh, you're like afraid of reward or punishment in the afterlife, and that's why you're being a good person. And like I would look for all like the hypocrisy in religion. Like, why are you like going around touting like Jesus's ideas, but you have like a gold Mercedes Benz? Jesus said you should give away all your material wealth. So like it meant I didn't have to do any of that. I was better than other people, and I was going to be right that you don't need God and there is no God. Um, and that didn't get me very far because I'm a finite human and I can't hold myself to my own values. I might know what doing the right thing feels like, but in day-to-day situations where it's like, my ego and my fear really wants me to pick like making people afraid of me or controlling people. I don't have the ability to fight against that unless I have a clear template of how I can and cannot behave. And I cannot break those rules if I want to live a spiritual way of life and stay sober. I didn't have those high stakes, so I could break the rules all I wanted to. And then I'd be like, why am I such a terrible person with no like values? And so, yeah, I got sober when I was 24. I think it was a great time to get sober. I don't ever think there's a bad time to get sober. I think we all get sober at the time we're intended to. And there were a specific set of circumstances that brought me from one bad thing to the next bad thing to the next bad thing to the right good thing in my life that made me have a spiritual experience, made me be open to getting sober in the first place. And I happened to live in Chicago at the time, which is a fantastic place to get sober as a 24-year-old. I don't think I could have gotten sober without the amount of like young people's um, meetings. There's like so many of them, and there's so many people my age, slightly older, slightly younger. There's a group for whatever age you're at. And like I had the desperation and the willingness, and I'd never had that before. Like I'm like, I don't want to like stop drinking. Like that's stupid. Like I don't like anybody telling me what I can and can't do and how I should run my life. And I needed to fully explore how badly I can run my own life before I was like, yeah, I might not be the smartest person in the world. And just because like I know what my problems are doesn't mean I know how to solve them. Um, so yeah, I dated an alcoholic right before coming in. I realized that because I was so okay with him being an alcoholic, that it reflected that I was willing to, it like brought me to the realization that I was an alcoholic, and I needed those things to happen at that time. And like that relationship sort of destroyed me. It was very short-lived, but I needed those exact bad things to happen while other good things were happening, like, you know, taking an astronomy class, which helped me have a spiritual experience in the first place. I began to see that like science and God weren't separate things. Like God exists in the flow of the universe. God exists through like, you know, the Big Bang. The idea that any of us would be here at this time, like the fact that any of us are alive on a planet that can support life, that like started to go through my mind, and those were the ingredients I needed to like go into AA with the willingness. Um, I met a sponsor and I worked the steps as quickly as possible because I was sick and I was afraid, and I was willing to do whatever it was that was going to keep me sober, which was never something I had ever in my life. I needed things to go the way that they were. I couldn't have gotten sober any earlier. I wasn't ready, and those ingredients weren't there. And I'm incredibly lucky. I get to have like a really cool life. I've gotten to go like on a whitewater rafting young people's AA conference. I get to be on 2 bid committees. If you don't know what a bid committee is, it's essentially like if you picture a sci-fi convention, they have like conventions for young people in AA. And you get to see people from all over the country come to this conference being held by a group of alcoholics that are young in sobriety that like tried really hard to put on this conference for a bunch of people so that people could meet each other, people you would never meet anywhere. And I've met Storm at these conferences. I've met a lot of people at these conferences. I've made some of my best friends like being on the bid committees and like being of service. And like I was never a person that showed up for people ever. I was flaky at best. And actively malicious at worst. I was a really selfish person, but I didn't know how else to be. Like, I have extreme compassion for who I was at every phase of my life, because when I think back on it, I didn't know how to be any better than I was. I was trying my best, but I didn't have the tools. And I understand why a 17-year-old me thought that like dating a sociopath was a good idea. Like, I understand why I felt that way, because I don't have the knowledge that I do now. Yeah, I chair a meeting for like an old man with dementia at his nursing home, which was never something I thought I'd do. I've gotten to like go to like festivals that I was always too drunk to attend, because planning requires you to be sober for some period of time, and it requires you to have the energy and to be organized. And I never did that. There were all these things that I wanted to do that I talked about doing. And I went from a person who talked about doing things to actually organizing and planning and doing those things. You know, I got to have my very first birthday sober at like a roller disco. And I got to develop all these cool friendships. Like, all of my friendships before were people using me and me using them. And I didn't realize that until there was nothing that I or anybody else needed from each other. Those are the best friendships, because it's like, we're here because we genuinely want to be here and we love each other. Um, and like, I realized, like, no one told me to be of service. I just knew I wanted to be helpful. I just knew I was really grateful for the life I was being given. Like, I was being given a second chance at life. When I was like, when I had been told that like I was, I thought I was gonna die at 27. Like, I didn't think I was gonna get to live this life. I wasn't happy and I didn't like my life. And now I get to do so many cool things, and I get to be helpful to people, and I get to help people get into rehab, and I get to help other people that were just like me coming in, who like were going to die, but now I get to watch them become the people they're going to be, like people who like are lawyers, doctors, like the future people that are going to help the next person, whether it's in the rooms or outside of the rooms. And like I get to, go to conferences. I get to like make all these beautiful memories. And I wasn't supposed to have this life. I was supposed to have a very different life. I have a sponsee, and I get to help her through her things. And it's just such a meaningful existence, which is what I was looking for, but I didn't know that that's what I wanted. I didn't know that that's what I craved and was trying to find in other things. I just didn't think that there was any meaning. I was looking for it at the bottom of a bottle. I was looking for it, in a man. I was looking for it in like items of clothing and like shopping and like material possessions. And like, the most beautiful things in life are like the memories that you create with other people that you love and that love you. And I think that's what, if I were to sum up what my higher power is connection and thinking about other people, loving other people, which sounds corny, but like it is truly the opposite of like selfishness and like, taking from other people, and what can I get and how am I going to get what I need, and like, how am I going to make sure that like my fears don't become reality? Like, and I wake up selfish, and I have to like ask God to like direct me towards thinking about other people, towards being of service and wanting to show up. Like, I don't take most service positions because I'm a great person. I take it begrudgingly. And then I learn to enjoy it along the way. Like, I end up in a meeting in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm at the wrong place at the wrong time. I showed up when there was a business meeting and somehow I got suckered into this. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, great, I'm chairing another meeting. Oh, I'm a coin person again. Oh, now I'm fellowship coordinator. Now I have to come to this meeting every week. But that's the accountability I need. I need like 3 or 4 service positions a week to keep me accountable, keep me honest. Cause like, left to my own devices, I'm like, I'm a finished product. I don't have any more growing to do, and I'm gonna stay inside and I'm gonna watch my shows. I'm tired today, but like, when I have a service commitment, it doesn't matter whether I'm tired. I have to go. I have to show up. I have to do my commitment. I have to, like, I'm accountable to other people, and that's just such a beautiful and cool thing. And if I could leave anybody with anything, it would be find people who kind of work the program that you want to work, people that you look up to, and make those people your friends. And then, get a sponsor who you admire and work all 12 steps, because there's a reason that that's part of the program. It's not just going to meetings. Be of service where you can, and like be kind and be gentle on yourself, like be accountable, but be aware that like we are all God's children, and we're all sick people and we're all working on ourselves. So yeah, with that, I'll pass. Thank you so much.